This is Matt from NPR. This is Nick from Spin 103.8 in Dublin. But you're originally from
Australia, yeah.
How many years have you been in Dublin?
10 years now, yeah.
10 years, and you're liking it?
Loving it, yeah.
Loving it. I love it. And you're based in Washington, D.C.
Yep, Washington, D.C.
So you were talking about how to use radio stations, their digital platforms, what they output in digital to drive audiences back to linear FM, is that it?
Yeah, so for Spin, which is a music station, we do a lot of cross-pollinating. So stuff that happens on air, we'll run that online and drive listeners back, and vice versa. We'll put content online and drive them into the radio station.
Is it incredibly difficult now because young people listening to music on demand, where they want, if a young person, primarily your audience, being a young audience, they come to you and say, Nick, love the music, but I can listen to it everywhere else, why the heck would I turn on the FM?
Yeah, so it's companionship, but it's also giving them the content that they're seeking out, whether that be podcasts or certain artists. We do our best to integrate them into our radio station. So we've taken certain podcasts that our youth audience resonate with, and we've actually given them radio shows. So we've seen a lot of that podcast audience come across to radio because of that. Same with DJs. So we have there's a few DJs who we've given radio shows to who would be really big with that youth audience.
Does it always work? Because last year we talked about that too, that for a while broadcasters were rushing to get Snapchat stars and Instagram stars, put them on the radio, but it wasn't necessarily translating that well.
Yeah, I mean, it can be hit and miss, but we do our best to work with them, and we actually team them up with radio people to make it sound like a cohesive radio brand. It's not just like a podcast on the radio. So, I mean, there's a bit of structure that has to go into place, but for the most part, we've seen boosts in numbers, which is good.
Okay, that's really good. Matt, let me come over to you, over to Mr. Washington, D.C. NPR, such a massive brand and such variety of output across the United States. What's the challenge that poses when you are trying to work with your digital toolbox, as you call it?
Yeah, I mean, like you're saying, we have so much content, so it's trying to figure out what resonates with audience, what they're going to be into, what they're going to look to, what they want to listen to. And a lot of that comes from just diving into the data and then just seeing in different age ranges, like what people are into. And then I feel like if you build the content, they're going to come to the conversation. So for us, it's been a lot with like social audio, like Twitter Spaces, like having a conversation based on a topic that I know they're already interested to online. And then when they see that, they're like, oh, I want to come to that talk, because that's something I'm already interested in. And then they can have a back and forth conversation within that with our hosts, our reporters, and I feel like that just opens up more ideas for the future and what stories we're going to cover.
What do you think, Matt, about the recent announcement? Facebook, people were kind of, excited about this. They're going to get into the audio sphere a bit with Facebook podcasts. And then like a year later, with 2 years, they just canned the whole thing and announced they're closing it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't super surprised because it felt like they weren't putting a lot of effort into it at that time. But I think it's fine. I think we can still find a way to work with digital audiences. We can still find where they're going to be on different platforms and just give them the tools to listen to there. And it don't have to depend on just Facebook or another platform. You could just see where the audience is and share them, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. You could find different places to drop that audio, then see who might be interested.
Do you see a crossover of the audience when you're doing something heavy on social or on a digital platform? Does it drive a large, sizable audience to one of your FM stations across the country?
Well, I think we've actually done it in reverse. So I gave the example of Steve Inskeep had done an interview with Donald Trump, the first interview Trump had ever done with NPR, and it was live on air, and then Trump hung up on him within like 10 minutes. And everybody's talking about this online.
That's very unusual.
Yeah, well, you know, when you push them about election results, it happens. But that happens, and then everyone on Twitter starts talking about it. And I'm like, we need to have a conversation here. So we actually drove the audience there where people could have a conversation with the host about what just happened, why did that happen, and then just what happens next from here.
So wait, when you say you drove the audience there, so it goes out linear, live on FM, and then you tell the audience listening, go to Twitter, go to social media, because we're breaking it down there, we're unpacking it.
Yep, exactly. So we start there, and then it works into Twitter Spaces where we have the open conversation, and then a digital article could be built out of that. The conversation we had there, some of the quotes we got, we can build that. So it's actually just part of a whole timeline of where you're moving in that. So it's not like we're just trying to drive everyone on air. We can drive them from on air to a Spaces to like a Facebook Live video, and then they can go into a digital article from there. So it goes across all these different platforms, and you're just collecting a different audience for each one.
Hugely successful from NPR, Tiny Desk concert.
Yep, Tiny Desk on YouTube. Yeah, which I think, it's my first time in Europe. So when I tell
Yes.
people I'm from NPR, they're like, "Oh, Tiny Desk."
Desk,
Yeah, and I'm like,
yeah.
"Yeah, that's us." Yep.
Do you think more into broadcasters here in Europe, I often think of myself, like, why aren't they creating content? Their local is key for them, of course, but that could reach a global audience like NPR do so well. Australian television and radio seem to do it a lot as well. But what's the key to success, do you think, when making yourself appealing outside of your territory?
I think just finding out what people are going to be interested in, and then just trying different things. Like if you're going to get on like a new platform, if you're going to go to Reddit and do an AMA, if you're going to try like different worlds that you might not be into before, just experimenting there, like jumping in, having that conversation, seeing what grows from there. And then I think what I love about having these open conversations online within different communities is we can ask them like, well, what stories aren't we covering? And then when they give us an idea or something that we haven't covered before, that could reach like a larger audience. That could reach an international audience because they're telling us directly, you don't do this yet. And we're like, okay, but we will. So then we'll start working on stories like that or try to like have some kind of direction that way so people would be into it.
Matt and Nick with your check shirts, matching, coordinating, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of Radio Days.
Thank you.
Thanks.